everybody? This is Glenn Lewis, and you know I got soul.
Glad you're here. It's good to talk to you again. I appreciate you making the time for this interview.
Oh, no, man, my pleasure. Actually, I should be thanking you, man.
For sure, man. Always glad to support. I just wanted to start out talking about this playlist retreat, the whole, experience. Had a chance to check out the album, Chase the Goosebumps. It's awesome. We're just really,
thank you, man.
Really cool to see what you guys came together with. So just talk about how you originally became a part of the whole session.
Basically, just the ins and outs and ups and downs of the industry. I had been, since my Sony days, my Sony Epic days. I'd always been working on music and just trying to elevate and show evolution as an artist, and been in and out of different situations that for one reason or another, just the ducks wouldn't line up, stars wouldn't align. And after a while, I got emotionally exhausted because, I would imagine like any other artist, I really love what I do, and I pour everything into what I do at every opportunity, because you never know, not to be morbid or anything, but you never know when it'll be your last. So you want to give you everything, and I just love it anyway. So I put my heart, I pour my heart out in the booth, and on paper, writing these songs, performing these songs. So eventually, I just got to the point where I was just emotionally exhausted, and I needed to sort of, retreat, and just kind of, just kind of like, just sort of, get back to basics, for lack of a better way of describing it. But, just coming back home to Toronto and, getting in with family. And I started, contemplating that maybe, sometimes life has a way of inadvertently suggesting maybe you need to go in a different direction, and I also felt like, well, I'm not one-dimensional, so let me maybe I need to figure out something else. Maybe it's time to get into management, maybe, to be able to impart things with, with younger artists. I mean, I've always thought that, but, I was always funny about that because, taking on an artist, you're literally taking on a life,
right.
and you want to make sure that you yourself are organized enough to be able to keep someone organized and focused on the right things. So that was always a big deal to me. So I was always sort of reluctant, because I wanted to make sure that if I was going to step into that arena, I knew what I was doing. Anyway, long story short, so I was just kind of at this crossroads. And Jeff has been a constant in my life since before even getting my deal at Epic. Like he's been a solid character and the same, where somebody that understands that there's people attached to this. He doesn't, a lot like many people in the industry where they sort of view artists and what they do as expendable. He's always had a compassion, a care, and a concern for the people that he works with, and I could relate, because it's the whole idea of relationships being your greatest resource, and not about what they can necessarily do for you, but just how special, the people that we cross paths with in life are, and Jeff's always, been exemplary of that. So I got a call, he hit me up and was like, man, what are you doing? And I was like, nothing. He was like, oh, hell no. He's like, listen, I've been putting on these retreats, and he was telling me of the last retreat, the second annual one that he had in August of 2016. He was like, this is the first year that I'm going to have artists and songwriters. Before it was just DJs and producers. And I was like, all right, cool. I'd love to come down. So he was like, yeah, man, I really want you to be there. So I came down, and it was overwhelming, because everybody I met that was down there, they, in one way or another, were kind of in similar spaces where they were kind of like, well, you know, I don't really know what to do next. I don't know, you know, things have sort of changed, you know, and you know, just from the early 2000s into the, you know, 2010 and onward, you know, things had changed in such a way where it was just kind of like, I don't really know what to do next. I feel like I've tried everything. And we were all sort of in a similar boat. And it ended up being really therapeutic, you know, because got a chance to connect with people that, you know, I admired, and they were, you know, we sort of would remind each other, like, yeah, man, you know, we got to get down to, you know, creating some music and being creative again, and, you know, sort of reminding everybody, you know, reminding each other, you know, of, you know, how special what it is we do is. And it funny enough, there was out of the 4 days of the retreat, there was a 48-hour challenge where for everybody that was there, everyone was broken off into groups, and it resulted in 18 different groups, and we sort of had this like treasure hunt Easter egg type thing where we had to we were given clues to find a USB. Once we found the USB, it had like 4 instrumentals on it, and we had to chop up the instrumentals and create a song and write the song and perform it, and you know, within 48 hours. And we did so, and we looked up, and there was an 18-song album, because it was 18 groups. It was an 18-song album, and Jeff was inspired by it. And you know, several weeks after the retreat, he was like, you know what? I want to do something that is unprecedented. I want to create an album in 7 days. I'm going to invite everybody back, because he'd do this thing 2 times out of the year, as far as I know. He would have the retreat, which would be in August, and then he would have these sessions between January and February to kind of start off the year, to sort of, gear up the new year and all that stuff. So he was like, this year at the sessions, we're going to invite everybody down, and we're going to do an album in 7 days, and we're going to shoot a video and everything. And I was like, oh, okay, it's ambitious. All right, let's give it a go. So, and he was like, he told me he wanted me to like, the way he explained it to me, I didn't even quite understand it. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll be doing a couple of songs. Maybe other people would be doing a couple of songs and whatever, and we'll do this like compilation project. And he was like, no, I want you to do the whole thing. And I was like, what? So anyway, I got down there, and I had no idea how this was going to work, and it was crazy because, most of it was organized. Some of it, we kind of had to figure out on the fly. But amazingly, I got there, and, we were all huddled, and he was like, listen, so the objective is to chase Goosebumps. Everything that we love, all the music that we grew up loving, we need to create whatever the classics are for tomorrow. We need to have that kind of mindset where we're aiming for creating stuff that, makes us feel good. That home cooked meal, that space, that, from song to song, where it, kind of trying to create the soundtrack of lives for the generations today going forward, and like that kind of thing, like trying, creating a focus, a target. And everybody just locked in. It was the most amazing thing. The streams that were put up don't even, like, they skim the surface. Being there, moment after moment, day after day, and the space where everyone was at, like, it's strictly for the love of the music. We'd all been through particular things where we kind of came back to basics, where, what we got into it for was just creating something cool to be like, oh man, that feels great, right, rather than the thing that the industry eventually imposes on you, where it almost becomes formulated. We got to chase the hit. We got to, pay attention to your demographic, and how will a particular thing be marketed, and what can you put, it just sonically. There's all these elements you end up having to think, and the thinking thing actually kind of takes you out of the game, because it just ends up being like anything else. It's the heart that ends up coming across as special, because uniquely we all have our own ways of expressing, even though we might be having similar conversations about love and stuff like that, or relationships or life, things that, the variables and the characters might change from person to person, but the experience, the highs and lows, the joys and disappointments, success and failure, those things are themes that anyone throughout the world, regardless of ethnicity or background, are familiar with, but the uniqueness of the message comes from that specific person's heart and how they express themselves. And that unique combination, the people that came together and that focus that Jeff supplied, and it was amazing. We just locked in. It's the most fun I've ever had. It's the best experience I've ever had creating music, and I've been doing music a while. It was the most amazing experience I ever had, like a real, true family atmosphere. People loosely throw the word family and love around, but it was real, and it still is. Like, and it's funny, as each day passes since we did it, it's more so it's sort of setting in, like, oh my God, I can't believe what we did, what we accomplished, and it's just easily the most amazing experience I've ever been a part of creatively.
Wow, that's awesome. I got to tell you, we were so excited to hear that you were actually singing all these songs, because we've been anticipating new music from you for a while, and then it all of a sudden came out, Jazzy Jeff's doing the album, and Glenn Lewis is singing every song. We were like, wow. So how did you pull this off 7 days? It must have been so strenuous, and how did you keep it together in that time and be able to pull this off?
The energy was so high. Everybody's energy was so high. We were having so much fun. There was, Jeff and his wife, his family. They, provided food, and just, it was amazing. Like, everything was catered, and it was just so comfortable, and everyone was in such a great space, and I was even surprised, because I literally went from zero to being thrown right in, and not even thrown right in, not even just thrown right in, but in trying to pull this off in that space of time. But strangely, we were aware of it, but it wasn't necessarily, I mean, I can only speak for myself. It wasn't necessarily strenuous for me. Basically, I was doing about 3 to 4 songs a day. I was performing 3 to 4 songs a day. But the workload was displaced, like it was shared in such a way where it made it relatively smooth, like as far as in getting things done. There were moments where there were little hitches, because there was basically 2 main rooms. There was the main studio that we were working out of, and then there was a smaller studio, like a B studio, and so sometimes we'd have to get our communication together, but for the most part, as far as in getting things done, Jeff was just like, okay, listen, your priority in performing these records, so whatever room you need, you let me know. I'll let whatever engineers that are available know, and we'll get it done. So for the most part, everything went really, it went really smooth. But yeah, the doing 3 to 4 songs a day, it was a lot. I definitely, funny enough, I only started to really feel it the last day, I think, which was like the Thursday. I think, well, Friday I had one more song I had to do, but around Thursday or Friday, I started to feel it, because the kind of hours I was putting in, like we'd be getting up like 10:30, 11:30 in the morning, but because we were going down at 6 or 7 in the morning, and wow. The earliest I went down was maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, and I think that was maybe like the Monday or Tuesday, but yeah, like every other day I was staying up and singing till about 6 or 7. in the morning. So it was a little bit of a like a sweatshop kind of
Yeah.
vibe. It was but it was amazing, man. It was just that, like I said, like I was saying from the top, like the energy was so high, you know, and you know, just cranking out records like, you know, 3 and 4 a day, and we looked up and, you know, I think we had like 18 done or 18 or 19 done, and it was amazing. I like, you know, I've never experienced anything like that. But you know, as I mentioned before, what made it easy is like we were all pushing that way. We were all up, and to the point that you didn't notice the time going by. It wasn't like you were counting the hours. You were just, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You were just pushing through it.
Right. I've had a chance to hear it a few times. I gotta just share with you my favorites so far. Right now, the ones I've got on repeat are Faceless, 1995, Mr. Grump, and This Could Be Us. For some reason, those ones stuck on me immediately. I mean, I love the whole project.
Hey.
I just wanted to point those out.
Oh, that's really cool. Thank you, man.
So, like I had mentioned, many of us have been anticipating new music from you. Moment of Truth came out back in 2013. Have you thought of a new project? You know, have you been working on a new project of your own?
I haven't. I haven't yet. Jeff and I have talked about it because now this is the collective, and this is a thing that, you know, we're doing. That's basically my hub now. So, you know, Jeff's already talked to me about it. And he was telling me, yeah, you know, he'd already told me from before. He's like, you know, people are going to more than likely expect an album from you after this. And he was like, we'll work it out. And I was like, all right, cool. I did a couple of songs while I was there that there's a chance that, you know, more than likely they could end up on the new project. Knowing me, of course, I love, you know, being in the moment. So that, you know, in beginning the process of creating the album, like I want to, you know, I don't know what'll come out of that, you know, as far as whether or not the songs that I did already, whether or not they'll make it or not. Hopefully they will. But all this to say, probably start a project maybe later on this year. You know, I think Jeff was talking about the possibilities of maybe like around, you know, anywhere between September and November to maybe start a new project.
Okay, cool. You know, it's been a few years since that Moment of Truth album. Can you just reflect back on it a little bit? I mean, it was officially your sophomore release. So, how do you view it now that a few years have passed?
It was a cool project. I ended up. It was the people that I was working with. It was kind of a collaborative effort. So I would say the only thing that I was a little disappointed in was there was a certain space that I was in creatively that I didn't fully get a chance to express on that album. You know, it was a kind of situation where, you know, everyone had their ideas. Everyone that was involved had their ideas of what kind of an album I should do, and I ended up compromising in ways that when I look back on it, I'm kind of like, you know, I after having certain conversations with people closest to me, you know, people were kind of like, listen, at the end of the day, you know, people, you know, it's a very personal thing, your relationship between your fans and yourself. You know, people want to hear where you're at and how you're feeling. You know, Moment of Truth was sort of safe. You know, I was sort of doing these love songs, and it was cool. Don't get me wrong. There's it's a feel good project, but I think funny enough, although I ended up collaborating a lot on Chasing Goosebumps, I feel like Chasing Goosebumps is a lot closer to my voice and the things that I, you know, how, you know, just as far as the kind of album that I would have wanted to create, because the way that we came together, a lot of the material for Chasing Goosebumps was out of the conversations we were having. You know, the conversations I was having with Eric Roberson and Aaron Camper and Messina and Maimuna, and all the conversations that we were having, and Carbon Hagens, all the conversations we were having they became the songs. Rather than, I think, Moment of Truth, it's a fun album. It's a lighthearted album, but I feel like there was a bit of substance and depth maybe missing. But it's still good music. It's a fun album. I would say that's sort of like it was a more lighthearted project, where I think this one had a little. This particular project, even though it's not my album, it's the Playlist Orchestra. I feel like there's more depth, there's more substance, there's more soul, there's more humanity to it.
Right, understood. And then just one last question for you. With all you've been through in this industry, you've been in the music industry many years now. A few of your albums have been shelved or, delayed, and we haven't had a chance to officially hear them. You kind of mentioned it a little bit in the beginning of this interview, some of the turbulence you've been through, the rockiness of it, the music industry. What is your how do you view the music industry yourself as an artist? Are you a little disenchanted by it as a whole? Are you still very excited about, recording music? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think I'm only human, so there's, to a certain extent, there was disappointment, because I'd even shared in in one of the streams, where, and it wasn't until I really listened back to myself where I was like, wow, because it's true, I could only imagine what it must have been like for the people closest to me. Like, I'd gotten to the point where I couldn't watch award shows, and I wasn't listening to music like I used to, and I wasn't singing like I used to. Like, I sung pretty regularly, whether it was around the house or whatever, and I just stopped. So I can only imagine what that must have been like for folks. But I think all in all, I'm not disenchanted. I understand that, this is life, for the average, for a person, a working individual, or in any aspect of life, wherever you are on the planet, like this is what it is. It's the peaks and valleys, and it's the valleys that kind of really put things in perspective and help you to appreciate what you do have, and the gifts that come in the form of loved ones, or that one true friend that sticks around no matter what's going on, or those kinds of things. And even being able to get back to basics and appreciate what I loved about music in the first place. Jeff cut right to the heart of the matter, where it's like, listen, it's not the music, it's the music industry, and the things that kind of come with the industry. Sometimes there's a lot of unnecessary dialogue, and a lot of people saying no, and why something can't work, and it's like they can't really even explain to you, or sometimes they, it's a thing where they believe wholeheartedly in what they're saying. They give a compelling argument for why a particular thing won't work, and the problem with that is that, if you never try, you'll never know. Basically, 100% of nothing is nothing. So, then they end up being proven correct. Whether it's one of those scenarios that I've always believed. However, that whether you say you can or you can't, you're right. But we'll never know the result of trying, because we never even got to that point. So that was the part that there was a period of time where it was a bit disheartening, but now, as a result of my experiences, I've sort of developed a different kind of acceptance and appreciation for everyone that stuck through it with me. Fans that would send emails of, where are you at? I miss your voice. I miss your music. Please come back. And it was always hard, because I wanted to, and they had no idea how much I wanted to. And all of a sudden, I was in the position where I understood now sometimes what happens to other artists, like artists that I loved coming up. And I was like, man, whatever happened to so-and-so? And I understood it. And there's this frustration where you're like, I want to. I really want to, but it's just, no man is an island. I can't do it by myself. And I just didn't have the right team at the time. Fortunately, in the case, one person at least, cared enough. Jeff cared enough to be like, all right, man, come on, let's do this. You know, he believed in me enough to find ourselves in this position to be able to do this kind of a project. And I mean, I would hope, you know, if anybody can hear it, like, the love is there. I had so much fun, man. I was, you know, track to track. I didn't care. 5, 6 o'clock in the morning singing. I didn't care. So I was having so much fun, and I was just so in my element, and I was so grateful and appreciative of being there. So to see people's response to it is just like, wow, I'm so glad I was able to do that, because that's it for me. It's like, you know, every album I've ever loved, and the albums that motivated me, empowered me, inspired me, that's all I've ever wanted to do, is to make music that would, you know, sort of carry the torch and create music that would inspire and get people through their days, and let them know that, hey, you're not by yourself. Like, everybody goes through stuff, and you know you're not by yourself. We're thinking about the same sort of things, and maybe we can approach it this way or that way, or, you know, create more solutions rather than reflect on problems. And that's what it's always been really about for me. So, you know, I more or less take the lessons from it. I'm not discouraged. I'm more appreciative and grateful for what I went through, because I feel like it came out through the art in creating this particular project.
It's awesome. That's a great outlook on it. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I guess that pretty much. I think I pretty much touched on everything. I mean, aside from the fact that, you know, I can't praise Jazzy enough for, you know, even through all the experiences that he's been through. You know, it's just so funny, like his diligence, his dedication, like for him to go from Touch of Jazz to, you know, coming full circle a few years later, and he has like a global Touch of Jazz now, where everybody is like, you know, just down for the cause and believers in him and his vision. And, you know, I can't praise him enough, because he's you know, he brought us together, and you know, there's a real strength in numbers within this collective, and I'm really grateful to be a part of something like this. And, you know, just everything that we were able to do, like from, you know, the video, the album, in that span of time. It really, I think probably the most amazing thing is in Jeff sort of being the nucleus to it, and just how it sort of ripples outward. You know, for anybody that's like, oh man, you know, like as an example of you know, other pockets of artists and producers and songwriters, for them to be able to pull together and, you know, make the music that's in your heart, and you know, and just put it out there. And as, you know, as Jeff eloquently put it, die empty. Just put it out there. Whether it's, you know, some you sell, some you give away, but you know, to basically just offer that. It's in the giving that you get, you know, some of your greatest blessings, and not that you're looking for it, but just it's in the giving. Like your life becomes so much. It's so much more enriched, you know, just in the giving. So that's probably the last thing I would say, is just, you know, just giving a huge shout out and thanks to everything that Jeff has done for all of us, and for me in particular.